All right, so this is amazing. You guys know Donald Trump has a lot of legal trouble, 91 criminal charges. Well, one of the things Trump is trying to do is get the case dismissed by arguing, I have presidential immunity. I have immunity. You can't charge me because I was president. And this is actually being tested in court. So here in a federal court, DC Circuit Court of Appeals, they're hearing whether or not they should dismiss the case because of presidential immunity. And what you're about to see here is probably one of my favorite clips over the past year, maybe even longer than that. So you're going to have a judge who is grilling John Sauer, who's the attorney for former President Donald Trump, and she is going to get him in a logic chokehold, the likes of which I'm not sure I've ever seen before. So listen very carefully to the argument that he's making and listen to her response and how she traps him. This is amazing. This is glorious. He's going to say something beyond preposterous.
Order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6.
He would have to be and would speedily be, impeached and convicted before the criminal prosecution.
What if he weren't? There would be no criminal prosecution, no criminal liability for that?
Chief Justice's opinion in Marbury against Madison and our constitutional tradition and the plain language of the impeachment judgment clause all clearly presuppose that what the founders were
This guy sounds like Robert F. Kennedy, doesn't he? He's got the voice of Robert F. Kennedy.
concerned about was not.
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
So your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes. There's a political process that would have to occur under the structure of our Constitution, which would require impeachment and conviction by the Senate. In these exceptional cases, as the OLC memo itself points out from the Department of Justice, you'd expect a speedy impeachment and conviction. But what the founders were much more worried about than using criminal prosecution to discipline presidents was what James Madison calls in Federalist Number 47, the newfangled and artificial treasons. They were much more concerned about the abuse of the criminal process for political purposes to disable the presidency from factions and political opponents. And of course, that's exactly what we see in this case.
I've asked you a series of hypotheticals about criminal actions that could be taken by a president and could be considered official acts. And I've asked you, would such a president be subject to criminal prosecution if he's not impeached or convicted? And your answer, your yes or no answer is no.
I believe I said qualified yes if he's impeached and convicted first.
My question was, okay, so he's not impeached or convicted. Let's put that aside. You're saying a president could sell pardons, could sell military secrets, could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival.
Sale of military secrets strikes me as something that might not be held to be an official act. The sale of pardons is something that's come up historically and was not prosecuted.
But your brief says that communicating with an executive branch agency is an official act, and communicating with a foreign government is an official act. That's what presidents do.
They're very strong situation. There's very strong examples of potential official acts. If you look at what Chief Justice said in against Madison, he said, rising directly under Article 2, Section 1, that the courts, that the president's official acts are, quote, never examinable by the courts. And he says it like 4 different times on pages 164 and 166.
Well, let me ask you about that then, counsel, because your position is, as I understand it, if a president is impeached and convicted by Congress, then he is subject to criminal prosecution, correct?
Yeah, being necessary. You said to prosecution.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. So therefore, he's not completely and absolutely immune, because under the procedure that you concede, he can be prosecuted if there's an impeachment and conviction by the Senate.
Very, very formidable structural check against the astonishing radical action of prosecuting a former president with official acts.
Correct. But you're conceding that presidents can be criminally prosecuted under certain circumstances.
Specifically, if they're impeached and convicted, I think that's the main branch of the impeachment judgment clause.
And isn't that also a concession that a president can be criminally prosecuted for an official act, because presidents can be impeached for official acts?
Under those unique circumstances.
Correct. But given that you're conceding that presidents can be criminally prosecuted under certain circumstances, doesn't that narrow the issues before us to, can a president be impeached? Can a president be prosecuted without first being impeached and convicted? All of your other arguments seem to fall away. Your separation of powers arguments fall away. Your policy arguments fall away if you concede that a president can be criminally prosecuted under some circumstances.
That was a masterclass. I've never seen a logical dismantling more thorough than that. I mean, that is like Mortal Kombat flawless victory type stuff. Oh, that's amazing. Where does Trump get these lawyers? By the way, his actual position, which he lays out there very clearly, even that, on its face, is absolutely absurd. So he's saying, if we got evidence, forget evidence, if we got irrefutable proof that Donald Trump committed murder while in office. Either he did it personally, or he ordered SEAL Team 6 to do it, or what have you. Since he wasn't impeached and then convicted in the Senate on that impeachment first, then there's literally nothing you could do. Because, immunity, get out of jail free card. Sorry. And let me explain to you how absurd that is. First of all, everybody knows the hyper-partisan nature of the country that we live in right now. In order to get an impeachment, yeah, you can get an impeachment through the House. That's actually not that difficult if you have a majority for your party in the House. That's easy. That went through twice for Trump, right? But in the Senate, I forget what it is, either 2/3 or 3/4, or you need a preposterously high number of people in the Senate to basically convict on the impeachment in order for the impeachment to go all the way through and the president to be removed. There is almost literally no scenario at all where I can imagine that actually happening in today's hyper-partisan environment. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. Because, of course, you'd have some people who come up with some sort of conspiracy and say, and actually, no, that thing didn't really happen, and here's why this is wrong, and here's, they would analyze anything like the Zapruder film and come up with some 7D chess argument as to actually Trump didn't murder somebody, even though we have him on video, and we have his fingerprints, and it's very obvious, and he's had the blood on him and all that. So, in that scenario, what you're saying is quite literally, a president can never be held accountable for anything at all, ever. And that is the very classic, infamous Nixon moment of when the president does it, it's not illegal. And our reaction at the time was, correctly, my ass cheeks, no, you're not immune from, if you commit a crime, it is a crime, and we're going to come after you, right? So, that's just an absurd position. But she also just cornered him masterfully there, because his original argument was he has total immunity from anything. And then, based on his argument at the beginning of that clip, she said, well, clearly you're not saying he has immunity from everything, because you just admitted if he's impeached and convicted on that impeachment in the Senate, then you can actually go after him for a criminal charge. And he's like, she logic chokeholded your ass, bro. That was embarrassing. And by the way, I think he's wrong on both counts. I think that you can criminally go after a president if indeed there are egregious crimes, regardless if there was an impeachment through the House or a conviction in the Senate over it, regardless of that. So anyway, look, this isn't going well for him, right? The sense I get is this is like, his position is kind of going to be laughed out of the court, because the logical implication of his position is I can never be held accountable for anything. And even if you say I can be held accountable for things, let me first put this incredibly high bar, which is impossible to clear, which then effectively makes it so you can't hold me accountable for anything. So both arguments that this guy's making are wrong, and that was an absolute masterclass from that judge, man. That was like, it was like a grand chess master playing the game against a kindergartner who just learned how the pieces move. That's what we just witnessed. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You want to.